Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and today I'll be keeping the promise I made at the end of my last video, and we'll be playing through a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Scarlet, using only Pokémon I want to throw off of a bridge. Now the big question is, how do I quantify how desirable a Pokémon is to yeet to their dooms? Well, I came up with two criteria, and if a Pokémon meets either, then they qualify and we can use them. The first criteria is how much I hate them. These are the Pokemon I look at and think to myself, wow, I hope whoever came up with this abomination is living a fulfilling life in a career where they can no longer bring more monstrosities to life. The other criteria is just Pokemon I think would be fun to push off of a bridge. With that out of the way, let's start the run. We start by grabbing our starter, a Quaxly named Baxter. Nimona says she can't believe we actually picked Quaxly, and to be honest, I wish I didn't. There's nothing wrong with Quaxly themselves, but the second they evolve is the second I start to hate this duck. We immediately head to South Province Area 1, where we catch a Wingull named London. Here's a good place to mention, I was originally just going to name all my Pokemon after characters that fell off of bridges, but I realized I only knew maybe 4, and Google really wasn't being helpful, so we add the names of bridges into the mix. The other thing to mention is the reason we're catching Wingull. Once again, there's nothing particularly wrong with them, but with their evolution. Anyone who has played a Hoenn region game knows just how annoying and awful these things are. With only water types on our team, the first Nimona fight might be close, but we can set up some stat boosts on Fuecoco before her Palmy comes out and is terastallized into a double electric type. Our water gun fails to KO, and we're hit by a thunder shock that leaves us paralyzed. But I am a genius and had the Cherry Berry equipped just in case this happened, and we take them out on the next turn to win the fight. Next up, we head to South Province Area 2 to catch the first Pokemon we're throwing off a bridge for fun, an Igglybuff named Susan. I just think this thing would be fun to drop off of a bridge and see how high it bounces. Same with Jigglypuff, but Wigglytuff just seems a lot less fun to push off of a bridge, so they'll be staying a Jigglypuff once they evolve. But before they can evolve, we watch London die while we're training, but it's not like anything of value was lost. We'll be taking on the first gym leader, Katie, next. Her Nimble is up first against Baxter, and it outspeeds us to land a Struggle Bug for little damage, and we set up a workup to boost our attack. After taking one more Struggle Bug, we take them out with a Wing Attack, and Tarantula is out next, but it gets outsped and taken down by a single Wing Attack. Finally, her Bug-type Teddiursa is in. We outspeed it to land a Wing Attack for more than half of its HP. They respond with a Fury Cutter that brings us down to just 9 HP, and then Teddiursa outspeeds Baxter to take them out with a Fury Cutter. Looks like we had a speed tie, but that's okay because Susan's got this, with her 0 offensive moves. Yeah, this is a reset. For attempt number 2, instead of a Wingull, we catch Gandalf the Ralts at South Province Area 1, and in Area 2, we get Golden Gate the Gimmighoul. My hatred for both will be explained once they evolve. At Area 3, we get ourselves a new Jigglypuff, and now we have our rematch with Katie. The strategy is the exact same, but this time around, Baxter is a speedy little duck and is faster than Nimble. This allows us to get a second workup off before taking them and Tarantula out. Teddiursa barely survives a Wing Attack, but its Fury Cutter can't get the KO, and we get our revenge on the next turn to win the first badge. While training up for the first Titan battle with Cloth, Gandalf gets absolutely bodied by a Yungoos, and now you'll never know why I'm gonna throw them off a bridge. Because they're dead. For the battle with the Titan, we start with Susan and immediately terastallize them into a water type, so Cloth doesn't have super effective damage against us. we land a couple charms to drop their attack, so now we can drop their health with a few water pulses. Our strategy for the second phase of the fight is the same, but their Rock Tomb hits us for big damage, and we have to switch out to Baxter, who gets a few water guns off while Cloth is busy fighting Arven's Shelter. They hit Cloth with a couple Leers to lower their defense, so we start using Aqua Jet instead and quickly win the fight. After we celebrate our victory, the camera pans from Baxter to Baxter, who then evolves into a very ugly duckling while posing next to a clone of himself. Next, we head over to the Inlet Grotto, where we teleport onto a cliff to catch a new Wingull, who will be instrumental in our fight against the second gym leader, Brassius. He starts with his Petilil, and we bring out London, who we immediately terrestrialize into a pure flying type. Our wing attack just fails to get the KO, and we're hit by a weak Mega Drain before taking them out. Smoliv is in next, and they survive a wing attack as well, and we're hit by a tackle before a second wing attack brings them down as well. Brassius' grass-type Pseudo-Wudo is up next, and our wing attack only takes out about a third of their HP before London goes down to a rock throw. But that's okay, they were never meant to survive this fight, because with Pseudo-Wudo's sturdy ability broken, we can now bring in Baxter to land a wing attack for, honestly, little damage. Pseudo-Wudo's Trailblaze nearly takes out Baxter, and from there, Pseudo-Wudo can just run through our team and cause yet another reset. Alright, third time's the charm, and this time around, we've caught all the same Pokemon as last time, but we didn't lose anyone to random wild encounters. Baxter outspeeds Nimble, and this time we just set up enough workups to one-shot her entire team. The Titan Cloth is up next, and through the power of grabbing overpowered TMs, we destroy the first phase with a Surf. It's a little hard to tell, but I really don't want to sit through that absurdly long intro again. The second phase is just as easy. Surf kills Arven's Shelter, and we take out Cloth with an Aqua Jet. Afterwards is the gym leader we lost to last time. London's Terra typing is now Water, so it's not a good idea to terrestrialize now, and our Air Slash just misses the KO on Petilil, who lands a critical hit Mega Drain. Well, this is going great. One more Air Slash takes him out, and Smoliv comes in, only to get bodied by another Air Slash. His Grass-type Pseudo-Wudo comes in, and London lands a strong Air Slash that causes Pseudo-Wudo to flinch. London, you magnificent flying nuisance. He lands a second Air Slash to secure the win and bump up the level cap just enough for us to evolve Gandalf, not into Kirlia, but further into Gallade. Why do I want to throw this thing off of a bridge? Nothing about this thing feels right to me. The hips are the most obvious issue, but then the fin on its head looks like it's doubled in size since its original appearance. Its legs look like they end in hooves to me. It has the world's dullest blades for arms, and they look like they'd snap off if he swung them too fast. Also, just a quick fun fact. Everyone, go open up Discord and go to the GIF search. Look up Gallade, and the first result will be Gallade breaking their spine in half because of how poorly it's designed. Anyways, next up is the Bombardier Titan, who we bring out Susan to fight. We can hit it with the Thunder Wave to paralyze it, and land a few charms to minimize their attack stat. We use Rest to heal up where we can, and then find a spot to land a few Thunderbolts to finish the first phase. Unfortunately, we didn't use Rest before entering the second phase, so Susan doesn't have the HP to survive Bombardier's first attack and dies. We bring out Baxter to use Surf, completely forgetting about Arven's Knackley, who immediately dies, leaving us in a one-on-one situation. Luckily, a second Surf gets the KO on Bombardier, and we can now move on to East Province Area 2, where we catch Balrog the Rotom. Why is Rotom being thrown off of a bridge? I think there's an over-reliance on Rotom in world building that is starting to feel detrimental. We got Rotom phones, Rotom Pokédexes, Rotom PCs, Rotom drones, which I will concede is a good use of Rotom, but then they put Rotom in a damn bike. They could have put 2 more Peko in a hamster wheels and it would have made more sense. That, or just let us ride a Rapidash or something. Well, I'm getting off topic. We have our fight against Giacomo next. His Poniard is instantly destroyed and he brings out his Starmobile. It has the Intimidate ability, which drops Gandalf's attack, and they can outspeed us to land a metal sound to cut our special defense in half. Our Sacred Sword takes out about a third of their HP, and we then switch to Baxter to reset our stat drops. Baxter loses less than half their HP to a Wicked Torque, and they can survive another before landing a low sweep to drop the Starmobile speed and their HP down to the halfway point. We switch Gandalf back in, who has to survive 2 Wicked Torques before finishing off the Starmobile with a Sacred Sword to win us the fight. Having a Gallade at this stage of the game is kinda overpowered and not interesting to rely on them to clear every Pokemon in the early game. So instead, we rely on them to clear out Nemona's first 2 Pokemon and then have Baxter beat her Crocalor. Right after this, I'm going to go back on what I just said because we are against what I believe to be one of the hardest fights in the game, the 3rd gym leader, Iono. She starts with Watrel against London, who outspeeds it and scores a 1-hit KO with an Ice Beam. Bellibolt comes in next, so we switch to Balrog as they use Spark, dealing little damage. They should be using a Water-type move now, so we can safely switch to Gandalf without risk of getting paralyzed. Nope, she still goes for Spark. But luckily, we don't get paralyzed. We have the leftovers to heal us up a bit before we use Substitute, which is immediately broken by Spark. The first Spark took out just under a quarter of our HP, so I thought the Substitute might last. But that first attack must have been a low damage roll, because we try to set up a Substitute again, and it is immediately broken again. So we'll have to boost up our defenses with a Bulk Up before we use Substitute again. We have to tank a Spark, but luckily we aren't paralyzed, and we get up a Substitute that isn't immediately annihilated. We hit a Drain Punch to bring Bellibolt to next to no HP, and heal us up quite a bit, giving us plenty of resources to burn on more Substitutes. This lets us set up more Bulk Ups, and we can take out Bellibolt and Luxio before the real issue, Mismagius, comes out. But since we still have our Substitute up, they can't confuse us or damage us without spending a turn to break the Substitute, and they go down to a single attack for us to win the 3rd badge. At the end of the fight, London evolves into a Pelipper, and then we run into some funky glitch that not only causes us to swim incredibly slowly, but also turns Koraidon into a submarine. While we're messing around in the ocean, we catch a Finizen named Brooklyn, and I'll explain why I want to chuck them off of a bridge once they evolve. The fight with Team Star's Fire-type base is up next, but London has the Drizzle ability, which causes it to rain whenever they switch in, so this is just an automatic win. The Orthworm Titan is up next, and a couple Surfs from London is enough to take out both Orthworm and Arven's Pokemon. That's the 3rd time we've killed Arven's Pokemon during these fights. We're now far enough into the game to get the Rotom catalog, which lets us change their form, and turning them into an easy bake oven would be appropriate for a fiery demon. But there'll be a lawnmower for our upcoming gym battle. For the fight with Kofu, we start with Brooklyn, who lands a couple of charms on his Veluza before we switch to Gandalf, who can now safely bulk up and sweep his team to win the fight. At this point, we finally gather enough Gimme Gold coins to evolve Golden Gate into a Goldengo, and it should be immediately obvious why this horrid creature is being tossed over the bridge. The fight with Atticus is next, and these fights are really just becoming where I can find a place to set up stat boosts and sweep their teams. For Atticus, it's right off the bat with his Skuntank. We start with Golden Gate, who can use a Thunder Wave to paralyze them for free, and then switch to Gandalf to set up substitutes and bulk ups before taking out his entire team. I'm going through these fights like an absolute weenie because our team feels sparse, and if we lose too many more Pokemon it might cause another reset, which I really don't want to happen. Anyways, we then head to East Province Area 3, where we try to remedy this issue and catch a new Pokemon, a Voltorb named Tower. We'll be throwing them off the bridge because I really want to know if Voltorbs bounce. They do not bounce, but I'm keeping them anyways. We also evolve Baxter into a Quaquaval, and the second I send this thing out, you'll see exactly why it's the Pokemon I hate the most. Oh, hi Storm. We also evolve Baxter into a Quaquaval, and the second I send this thing out, you'll see exactly why it's the Pokemon I hate the most, and why I want to throw it off of a rickety rope bridge over crocodile-infested waters. We have our fight with Larry next, and we start with Golden Gate before we switch to Brooklyn and have them hit his Kamala with some charms to drop their attack before bringing out Gandalf for our normal setup shenanigans and sweeping Larry's team. The reason we started with Golden Gate instead of Brooklyn is because we have to fight Nemona right after this without any time to change around the order of our team. She starts with her Lycanroc that does solid damage to Golden Gate with a bite before being destroyed by a flash cannon. Pomo comes in next, and they try to use Thunder Wave, which we're immune to, and then get the KO with a Psyshock. She brings out a Goomy next, and a couple Psyshocks takes them out, and all that's left is her Skeledirge. It spontaneously begins to rain, which suits us perfectly, and we swap out to Baxter as Skeledirge is terastallized and lands a Torch Song for solid damage. We then terastallize and go for an Aqua Step that misses the KO, and Skeledirge lands another Torch Song, which is enough to kill Baxter. This is fantastic. I can shove them into a box and never have to look at them again. Or at least until the next run I do in Scarlet that requires me to use this thing. But anyways, we can just bring in London and a Surf takes out Skeledirge to win us the fight. And now is a good time for us to evolve a couple of our team members. Starting with Tower evolving into an Electrode, and Brooklyn evolving into a Palafin. Why am I throwing this dolphin off of a bridge? Surprisingly, this has nothing to do with what I know about real-world dolphins, but is strictly with what happens when their ability activates. I hate this. Anyways, we then head over to South Province Area 6, where we catch and evolve a Sinistea named Long Island. They are being thrown off the bridge for two reasons. One, it is my moral obligation as an American to throw it into the harbor, and two, it just seems like fun. But next up is our gym battle with Rhyme, and this one is a double battle with us bringing out Brooklyn and Golden Gate to fight her Bayonet and Mimikyu. Golden Gate is hit by a Shadow Sneak, and then Bayonet's Sucker Punch on them fails. Brooklyn breaks Mimikyu's disguise with a flip turn that lets us bring out London, and Golden Gate ends the turn by setting up a Reflect. On the following turn, Golden Gate is only targeted by Bayonet's Sucker Punch, which brings them close to half HP, and Mimikyu sets up a Light Screen. But it isn't enough to save them from Golden Gate's Shadow Ball, which takes them out. London then hits a U-turn, and we switch back to Brooklyn, who is now ugly. Ryan brings out her Houndstone, and the crowd gives our Pokemon attack boosts. We switch Golden Gate out for Balrog, who is now an oven, and we terastallize Brooklyn, who then takes out Houndstone with a single Jet Punch. Bayonet then goes for a Sucker Punch, but we ain't suckers this turn and take no damage. Rhyme's Ghost-type Toxtricity is out next, but it also gets taken out by a single Jet Punch, and Bayonet falls to 1 on the next turn to win us the fight. Our next major fight is another battle with Nemona, and this time we start with Brooklyn against her Lycanroc. It hits us with a sand attack, but we just use Flip Turn, which misses the KO but allows us to bring out Gandalf, who eats a crunch before taking out Lycanroc with a Drain Punch. Sliggoo comes in next just to get destroyed by an Ice Punch, and her Palmot goes down to a Psycho Cut. For Skeledirge, we switch out to London, who doesn't die to a Fire-type move in the rain like a certain chump I know, and quickly takes them out to win the fight. Afterwards, we need to deal with the Great Tusk Titan. We start with a standard Brooklyn Flip Turn before we bring out Balrog, who is now a fan, who chases off Great Tusk with an Air Slash. For the second phase, we once again use Flip Turn, but this time into London, and for once, we aren't going to murder Arven's Pokemon. Instead, we use U-Turn to switch back to Brooklyn, who is now hideous, and punches Great Tusk to take them out. Next is our fight with Tulip, the 7th gym leader. We bring in Brooklyn to Flip Turn on her for Rigorath, and bring out London to U-Turn right back into Brooklyn, who is now unsightly. From there, we set up a Bulk Up while taking a couple hits from Farigiraf. This brings us down to about half HP, and we Terrastallize and go for a Jet Punch to take them out. But we forget they're immune to priority moves, and a Zen Headbutt brings us pretty low. We finish them off with a Nice Punch, and then take out both Gardevoir and Espathra with a single Jet Punch before her Psychic-type Florges comes out. Just to be safe, we go for a Flip Turn so we can switch out if we don't get the KO, but that was unnecessary because Florges goes down anyways to win the fight. And now we need to take on the final gym leader, Grusha. He starts with Frostmoth, while we bring out Balrog, who is once again an oven, and toasts this moth with an Overheat. Beartic is in next, and it can hit us decently hard with an Aqua Jet, before we land a Volt Switch to bring out Brooklyn, who immediately Flip Turns back to Balrog as Beartic goes for an Earthquake that can't hurt us. We can then tank another Aqua Jet before taking out Beartic with an Overheat, and Titan is out next. So we Volt Switch back over to Brooklyn, who is now, unprepossessing. Anyways, they're hit by a Liquidation for negligible damage, and since this thing really can't hurt Brooklyn, we get some Bulk Ups off before taking out the rest of his team to win the fight. Next up is Ortega, Team Star's Fairy-type trainer. We bring out Tower to fight his Azumarill, and we land a Volt Switch for big damage and switch back to Brooklyn, who is hit by an Aqua Tail. We Flip Turn and leave Azumarill in the red before we bring out Golden Gate on a Play Rough, which doesn't do too much damage despite it being a crit. We finish them off with a Shadow Ball before Darkspawn comes in and brings us close to half HP with a Crunch before it goes down to a Flash Cannon. Wigglytuff comes in, so we switch to Brooklyn, who is now misshapen, and they are hit by a Play Rough. We hit a Jet Punch to bring Wigglytuff well below half HP, before a second Play Rough brings Brooklyn close to death. So it's time to Flip Turn out of there. We get the KO, and Ortega brings out his Starmobile, and for some reason Brooklyn is still on the field? No matter, we can probably just outspeed them and use another Flip Turn. We do not outspeed them and Brooklyn is dead. But we can bring in Golden Gate to avenge her, since this Starmobile really can't do anything to hurt us, and a few Flash Cannons takes them out to win the fight. We then head to North Province Area 2 to catch our final Pokemon for the run, a Bisharp named Zabuza. Now, Bisharp is a perfectly fine Pokemon, a great design if anything, but I hate everything about its evolution. They took every trait that made Bisharp great and managed to turn them into negatives. I am embarrassed to be a member of the same species as the designer of this unprepossessing Pokemon. Also, we fight Aerie next, and Gandalf sets up to maximum attack and defense on her Toxicroak before annihilating her team. and while we personally do not kill Arven's Creedon in the final Titan battle, it does die while we spam Thunderbolt against the Titan Tatsugiri. But with all of this out of the way, we're finally at the final 10 fights of the run. Starting with the Elite 4 member Rika, we bring out Gandalf to handle her Whiscash, and a single Leaf Blade takes them down. Camerupt is in next, and a Psycho Cut deals great damage before Gandalf takes a critical hit Fire Blast to the face. Expecting another Fire Blast, we switch to London, but instead get hit by a Yawn. So we U-turn back to Gandalf on another Fire Blast, and we finish off the Camerupt with the Drain Punch. Donphan comes in next, and we switch to Balrog, who is now a washing machine that is immune to the incoming Earthquake. We then miss a Hydro Pump, while Donphan lands a Stone Edge. Our second Hydro Pump lands, leaving Donphan with 1 HP, while they defy the odds and hit a second Stone Edge in a row. Not wanting to risk a miss, we use Hex to finish off Donphan, and Dugtrio comes in. They set up a Sandstorm, but then get hit by a Hydro Pump for a one-hit KO. Her final Pokemon is her pure Ground-type Clodsire. We land a Hex for minimal damage before we get badly poisoned by Toxic. So we bring out Gandalf on a Liquidation that brings us rather low. We land a Drain Punch that heals us up quite a bit, to just over 100 HP. But then we're hit hard by an Earthquake, and after Sandstorm damage, Gandalf is left with just 1 HP before Leftovers heals them. But 1 HP is all we need because we use Leaf Blade to finish off the Clodsire to win the fight. Next up is our battle with Poppy, and we bring out Balrog, who is once again in Oven, to take on her Copperajah. We outspeed and land an Overheat for the one-hit KO, and she brings out her Bronzong next. We Volt Switch to Gandalf, who loses half their HP to a Zen Headbutt. That does quite a bit more than I was expecting. We then begin to bulk up, and we're hit by an Iron Head that brings us close to a third of our max HP. We get a second bulk up out, and then we're hit by a Zen Headbutt. This time it's a critical hit and Gandalf dies. We bring out Golden Gate, and they get their revenge KO with a Shadow Ball, before Poppy brings out Magnezone. Our Shadow Ball takes out half of their HP, but they then set up a light screen, which allows them to survive a second Shadow Ball, and hit us with a Discharge for solid damage. The third Shadow Ball is the end of them, and Corviknight comes out next. Our Thunderbolt takes out less than half of their HP, but Corviknight really can't do much to hurt Golden Gate, especially not after we set up a Reflect the turn light screen ends. We finish off Corviknight with a Thunderbolt, and she brings out her final Pokemon, her pure Steel-type Tinkaton. But thanks to the Reflect we set up, she doesn't do much damage, and because Golden Gate is Ghost-type, she can't even use Brick Break to shatter our Reflect. So it's just a matter of landing a few Shadow Balls to take them out and win the fight. The third Elite Four member is Larry, and we bring out London to take on his Tropius. We outspeed, and an Ice Beam is a one-hit KO, and his Staraptor comes in next. It lands a Brave Bird for big damage, but also dealing quite a bit of recoil damage to themselves. We then land an Ice Beam, but that just misses the KO, so we switch to Golden Gate, expecting them to use Facade in order to save HP, but they go for Brave Bird, which doesn't deal too much damage to us, and the recoil takes them out. Altaria is out next, and we switch to Balrog, who is a washing machine once more, and is hit by a flamethrower that does so little damage that our leftovers completely heal us. We hit a Discharge that leaves Altaria paralyzed before we get hit by a Dragon Pulse for decent damage. Altaria can't move the next turn, and a couple more Discharges takes them out. Larry's Oricorio is up next, and its Revelation Dance takes out less than half of our remaining HP, before our Discharge brings them below half HP. So we should have this one in the bag. Oricorio lands another Revelation Dance, and this time it's a critical hit and Balrog dies. Amazing. We bring out Long Island and get hit by a Revelation Dance while setting up a nasty plot to double our special attack. Oricorio then uses Teeter Dance to confuse us, but Long Island powers through and lands a Shadow Ball to KO Oricorio. And finally, we need to deal with his pure flying type Flamigo. Hopefully we outspeed and can put our increased special attack to work. We do not outspeed. But you know who does? Tower, and they take him out with a single discharge to win the fight. Our battle with Hassel is next, and he starts with Noivern while we bring out London. They hit us with a Super Fang to cut our HP in half before we land an Ice Beam for the one-hit KO. Dragalge is up next, so we switch to Tower on a Thunderbolt that doesn't deal too much damage. We then start landing Eerie Impulses to drop Dragalge's special attack into non-existence. We then Volt Switch to Zabuza, and with Dragalge not being able to do damage, we are free to set up a few iron defenses to turn Zabuza into an unbreakable wall. And thanks to their ability, by keeping the corpses of Long Island and Balrog in our party, they get a small power boost. From there, we can take out Dragalge, Flapple, and Haxorus, all without taking any damage that leftovers couldn't heal away. For Excalibur, we Terrastalize into a pure Dark type so Brick Break doesn't deal too much damage, and a couple of Kowtow Cleaves takes them out to win the fight. After this fight, our team is fully healed, so we can't use Long Island and Balrog to boost Zabuza's stats in our fight against Champion Gita. We start with Zabuza against Terraspathra anyways, and after taking a Dazzling Gleam, we land a critical hit Kowtow Cleave for the KO. Gita proceeds to monologue for 5 hours before sending out Avalugg. They could be going for Earthquake or Body Press here, and we take the gamble on it being Body Press and switch out to Golden Gate, who's immune to it, and we go unpunished. From there, we can land a Make It Rain for the one-hit KO, and Gita brings out her King Gambit next. So we switch to ours on a Kowtow Cleave that deals a decent bit of damage. We then outspeed it and land a Brick Break for a one-hit KO, and Go-Goat comes in next, but it's a free KO because they try to go for Bulk Up, but they can only get one off before being taken down by Kowtow Cleave. Next in is Veluza, and we surprisingly outspeed them and get another one-hit KO, and all that's left is her pure Rock-type Glamora. We switch to London on an Earth Power, which we're immune to, and after Terrastalizing into a pure Water type, we tank a Terra Blast that deals quite a bit of damage, and we can retaliate with a Chilling Water for the one-hit KO to win the fight. Next up is our fight with Director Clavel, and we start with Zabuza against his Oranguru. We just sit there and spam Iron Defense and let ourselves fall asleep to yawn. Our goal being to drain all the power points out of Foul Play. Of course, the one time I don't want my Pokemon to wake up is the time we consistently get the fastest wake up times. But eventually they ran out of PP for Foul Play, and we can bring out Golden Gate, who is now immune to every move Oranguru has. So we're free to set up and then sweep his entire team. Our battle with Penny is next, but it's a slaughter like always. After that, we fight Arven, and we start with London against his Greedent, and we begin using Growl of all moves to lower his attack. Greedent responds by spamming Body Slam, and the first one does paralyze London, but with Greedent's dwindling attack stat, it's never able to get London close to being KO'd. Once Greedent no longer has an attacking stat, Golden Gate comes in to set up and sweep his team. Our strategy for our final battle with Nemona is the exact same. We have London Terrastalize into a pure water type to avoid super effective damage from her Lycanroc, and we're able to get off 2 Growls to cut Lycanroc's attack in half before London gets hit by a critical hit Stone Edge and dies. Golden Gate is able to set up off of this, and while it's a bit closer than I'd like, with us being brought down to just 25 HP at one point, they pull through and take out all of her team with a single attack each. Those last few fights have been pretty uninteresting, and unfortunately, that doesn't change for the final fight. There will be no teaching tower explosion for the fun of it. Despite Seda inventing a time machine, she is unable to understand that if your current Pokemon can't deal a decent amount of damage and the opponent is setting up stat boosts on you, it might be a wise decision to switch out to a better option. Slitherwing has absolutely no moves that can deal meaningful damage to Golden Gate, and they are free to set up 3 Nasty Plops to maximize their special attack, set up a substitute, and begin to take out all of Seda's Pokemon in a single hit each. Her Fluttermane outspeeds us and breaks our substitute before going down, but she then brings in Screamtail next, which just allows us to set up a new substitute for free. So when her Roaring Moon comes in, it can't get a clean hit off, and we take it out in a single attack to win us the fight and the run. Well, that'll be it for this video. The concept behind this one was very subjective, and I think a more objective run is in order. Join us next time when we beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Ruby, only using Pokemon who are, objectively speaking, smelly chumps who belong in the garbage. I've been Hextasy, and thanks for watching.